Hello friends, just like my other courses, this course is also structured in such a way so that in the initial part of the course, we look into the fundamentals and familiarize ourselves with the tools that IB API provides. And in the later part of the course, we put everything together and implement our strategy. So in this section, I will spend some time on discussing about options fundamentals and options valuation. Again, let me qualify right now that options is a vast topic and there is no way I can justify covering everything about options in one section. But the idea is that we should have enough option fundamentals so that understanding everything that is being discussed in the later part of the courses should be a cakewalk. And that is what I have aimed for when I have created the option fundamental lecture videos. And if you are a seasoned option trader or have extensive experience working with option contracts, feel free to skip the option fundamentals portion of this course. We will then move on to options valuation. And here I will first give you an intuition of how to value an option. And then we'll look into a number of approaches, namely Monte Carlo simulation and the much venerated Black-Scholes formula to value options. And I'll discuss both the theory and the Python code to implement that valuation. Although we won't be using the valuation code in the later part of the course because IB API already does all the valuation heavy lifting for you, but it's always good to know how the valuation model works, and therefore I'm spending time in this topic as well. We will then move into the very important concept of an option chain and how IB API lets you extract and work on option chain for a given underlying. This is arguably the most important section in the course because if your concept of option chain is not clear, you will not be able to progress through the course. So make sure you have a very thorough understanding of what option chains are and how you can work with options chain. So once we develop basic familiarity with options chain, we will then move on to the topic of selecting the required option contract from the options chain. So based on the strategy that you are implementing, you may be interested in different option contract from an option chain. So for example, in your strategy, if you are interested in at the money options, you would want to cherry pick the at the money call and at the money put from the options chain of the given underlying. If your strategy wants you to have at the money option and deep out of the money option, you should be able to identify which option contracts satisfy your requirement and then pick it from the options chain. And that is precisely what we will discuss in this section. And then we'll learn how we can stream and store market data for the option contracts that we have selected for our strategy. So by financial data, I mean the current price of the option, the volume being traded, the open interest, and we'll discuss what these financial data actually means when we get to those topics. And we will see how we can get this data both in real time and the historical data. I've actually created a separate section for extracting historical data of options contract, and that's because there is a unfortunate peculiarity with IB API historical data for options contract. And we'll discuss it when we get to the historical data section, but I have created a separate section that delves into historical data of options contract. We'll then discuss option Greeks, which is a very important concept if you are a serious options trader. Although in this course, I'll not be using option Greeks in my strategy, but I will devote some time in explaining what option Greeks are, how you can stream them for a given options contract, and how you can handle them. We'll then look into advanced order types for options, namely combo orders and bracket combo orders. And these order types are critical for implementation of pretty much any option spread strategy, and therefore I would consider this section as also very important. And then finally, we'll bring everything together and we'll use all the tools that we have learned to implement an options trading strategy. And let me give you a heads up that we'll be implementing the bear spread strategy, but you should also be able to implement the straddle strategy because in the previous sections of the course, I have done everything keeping in mind the straddle strategy, and only in this section where we are implementing a strategy, I have changed the paradigm and I have used bear spread strategy. And I've done that because I want you to have familiarity with more than one strategy. And I hope that by the end of this section, you will be comfortable implementing both the option straddle strategy and the bear spread strategy. And the idea is that once you are familiar with these basic strategies, you should be able to tweak the code template that I'm going to share and implement pretty much any option strategy that you are interested in. And then you can see that in the last point, I have mentioned what about backtesting. So in the first version of the course, I am not going to have a backtesting section. And I have to do that because of an unfortunate problem with the historical data of IB API. IB API does not provide historical data for expired options. It does provide data for expired future contracts, but strangely, it doesn't provide the same information for expired options. And without the historical data for expired options, I really don't know how I can implement a proper backtesting for option strategy. We can try to bootstrap using the historical data of the underlying asset, but I'm not really sure if that implementation would be an accurate backtesting implementation. So I'll probably think of another way to come up with a proper backtesting implementation in absence of IB API historical option data for expired option, but I am not guaranteeing that I will have a backtesting section. If I do end up creating a backtesting section, I will announce and then you will know.